Chapter 27 of 10 Years Later. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information, or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Eden Ray Hedrick. 10 Years Later, by Alexandre Dumas. Chapter 27. Madame de Belliere's Plate. The blow had been the more painful on account of its being unexpected. It was some time before the Marquise recovered herself, but once recovered, she began to reflect upon the events so heartlessly announced to her. She therefore returned, at the risk even of losing her life in the way, to that train of ideas which her relentless friend had forced her to pursue. Treason, then, deep menaces concealed under the semblance of public interest, such were Colbert's manoeuvres. A detestable delight at an approaching downfall, untiring efforts to attain this object, means of seduction no less wicked than the crime itself. Such were the weapons Marguerite employed. The crooked atoms of Descartes triumphed. To the man without compassion was united a woman without heart. The Marquise perceived, with sorrow rather than indignation, that the king was an accomplice in the plot which betrayed the duplicity of Louis XIII in his advanced age, and the avarice of Mazarin at a period of life when he had not had the opportunity of gorging himself with French gold. The spirit of this courageous woman soon resumed its energy, no longer overwhelmed by indulgence in compassionate lamentations. The Marquise was not one to weep when action was necessary, nor to waste time in bewailing a misfortune, as long as means still existed of relieving it. For some minutes she buried her face in her cold fingers, and then, raising her head, rang for her attendants with a steady hand, and with a gesture betraying a fixed determination of purpose. Her resolution was taken. "Is everything prepared for my departure?" she asked one of her female attendants who entered. "Yes, madame, but it was not expected that your ladyship would leave for Belliere for the next few days." "All my jewels and articles of value, then, are packed up?" "Yes, madame, but hitherto we had been in the habit of leaving them in Paris. Your ladyship does not generally take your jewels with you into the country." "But they are all in order, you say?" "Yes, in your ladyship's own room." "The gold plate?" "In the chest." "And the silver plate?" "In the great oak closet." The Marquise remained silent for a few moments, then said calmly, "Let my goldsmith be sent for." Her attendants quitted the room to execute the order. The Marquise, however, had entered her own room, and was inspecting her casket of jewels with the greatest attention. Never until now had she bestowed such close attention upon riches in which women take so much pride. Never until now had she looked at her jewels except for the purpose of making a selection according to their settings or their colours. On this occasion, however, she admired the size of the rubies and the brilliancy of the diamonds. She grieved over every blemish and every defect. She thought the gold light and the stones wretched. The goldsmith, as he entered, found her thus occupied. "Monsieur Faucheux," she said, "I believe you supplied me with my gold service?" "I did, your ladyship." "I do not now remember the amount of the account." "Of the new service, madame, or of that which Monsieur de Belliere presented you on your marriage? For I have furnished both." "First of all the new one." "The covers, the goblets, and the dishes with their covers, the eau épergne, the ice pails, the dishes for the preserves, and the tea and coffee urns cost your ladyship 60,000 francs." "No more?" "Your ladyship thought the account very high." "Yes, yes, I remember, in fact, that it was dear, but it was the workmanship, I suppose." "Yes, madame, the designs, the chasings, all new patterns." "What proportion of the cost does the workmanship form? Do not hesitate to tell me." "A third of its value, madame." "There is the other service, the old one, that which belonged to my husband?" "Yes, madame, there is less workmanship in that than in the other. Its intrinsic value does not exceed 30,000 francs." 30,000, murmured the Marquise. "But, Monsieur Faucheux, there is also the service which belonged to my mother, all that mass of plate which I did not wish to part with on account of the associations connected with it."
"Ah, madame, that would indeed be an excellent resource for those who, unlike your ladyship, might not be in position to keep their plate. In chasing that they worked in solid metal. But that service is no longer in fashion. Its weight is its only advantage."
"That is all I care about. How much does it weigh?"
50,000 livres at the very least. I do not allude to the enormous vases for the buffet, which alone weigh 5,000 livres, or 10,000 the pair."
130, murmured the Marquise. "You are quite sure of your figures, Monsieur Faucheux?"
"The amount is entered in my books. Your ladyship is extremely methodical, I am aware."
Let us now turn to another subject," said Madame de Belliere, and she opened one of her jewel boxes.
"I recognize these emeralds," said Monsieur Faucheux, "for it was I who had the setting of them. They are the most beautiful in the whole court. No, I am mistaken. Madame de Chatillon has the most beautiful set. She had them from the Messieurs de Guise. But your set, madame, comes next."
"What are they worth?"
"Mounted?"
"No, supposing I wished to sell them."
"I know very well who would buy them," exclaimed Monsieur Faucheux.
"That is the very thing I ask. They could be sold, then?"
"All your jewels could be sold, madame. It is well known that you possess the most beautiful jewels in Paris. You are not changeable in your tastes. When you make a purchase, it is of the very best, and what you purchase you do not part with."
"What could these emeralds be sold for, then?"
130,000 francs.
The marquise wrote down upon her tablets the amounts which the jeweler mentioned. "The ruby necklace?" she said.
"Are they balas rubies, madame?"
"Here they are."
"They are beautiful, magnificent. I did not know your ladyship had these stones."
"What is their value?"
200,000 francs. The center one alone is worth 100,000.
"I thought so," said the marquise. "As for diamonds, I have them in numbers: rings, necklaces, sprigs, earrings, clasps. Tell me their value, Monsieur Faucheux." The jeweler took his magnifying glass and scales, weighted and inspected them, and silently made his calculations.
"These stones," he said, "must have cost your ladyship an income of 40,000 francs."
"You value them at 800,000 francs?"
"Nearly so."
"It is about what I imagined. But the settings are not included?"
"No, madame. But if I were called upon to sell or to buy, I should be satisfied with the gold of the settings alone as my profit upon the transaction. I should make a good 25,000 francs."
"An agreeable sum."
"Very much so, madame."
"Will you then accept that profit, on condition of converting the jewels into money?"
"But you do not intend to sell your diamonds, I suppose, madame?" exclaimed the bewildered jeweler.
"Silence, Monsieur Faucheux. Do not disturb yourself about that. Give me an answer simply. You are an honorable man, with whom my family has dealt for 30 years. You knew my father and mother, whom your own father and mother served. I address you as a friend. Will you accept the gold of the settings in return for a sum of ready money to be placed in my hands?"
800,000 francs? It is enormous."
"I know it."
"Impossible to find."
"Not so."
"But reflect, madame, upon the effect which will be produced by the sale of your jewels."
"No one need know it. You can get sets of false jewels made for me, similar to the real. Do not answer a word, I insist upon it. Sell them separately, sell the stones only."
"In that way it is easy. Monsieur is looking out for some sets of jewels as well as single stones for madame's toilette. There will be a competition for them. I can easily dispose of 600,000 francs worth to monsieur. I am certain yours are the most beautiful."
"When can you do so?"
"In less than 3 days' time."
"Very well. The remainder you will dispose of among private individuals. For the present, make me a contract of sale, payment to be made in 4 days."
"I entreat you to reflect, madame, for if you force the sale you will lose 100,000 francs."
"If necessary, I will lose 200. I wish everything to be settled this evening. Do you accept?"
"I do, your ladyship. I will not conceal from you that I shall make 50,000 francs by the transaction."
"So much the better for you. In what way shall I have the money?"
"Either in gold or in bills of the Bank of Lyons, payable at Monsieur Colbert."
"I agree," said the marquise eagerly. "Return home and bring the sum in question in notes as soon as possible."
"Yes, madame, but for heaven's sake—"
"Not a word, Monsieur Faucheux. By the by, I was forgetting the silver plate. What is the value of that which I have?"
50,000 francs, madame."
"That makes 1,000,000," said the marquise to herself. "Monsieur Faucheux, you will take away with you both the gold and silver plate. I can assign, as a pretext, that I wish it remodeled on patterns more in accordance with my own taste. Melt it down, and return me its value in money at once."
"It shall be done, your ladyship."
"You will be good enough to place the money in a chest, and to direct one of your clerks to accompany the chest, and without my servant seeing him, and order him to wait for me in a carriage."
"In Madame de Faucheux's carriage?"
said the jeweler. "If you will allow it, and I will call for it at your house."
"Certainly, your ladyship."
I will direct some of my servants to convey the plate to your house." The marquise rang. "Let the small van be placed at Monsieur Faucheux's disposal," she said. The jeweler bowed and left the house, directing that the van should follow him closely, saying aloud that the marquise was about to have her plate melted down, in order to have other plate manufactured of a more modern style. 3 hours afterwards she went to Monsieur Faucheux's house, and received from him 800 francs in gold enclosed in a chest, which one of the clerks could hardly carry toward Madame Faucheux's carriage, for Madame Faucheux kept her carriage. As the daughter of the president of a count, she had brought a marriage proportion of 30,000 crowns for her husband, who was syndic of the goldsmiths. These 30,000 crowns had become very fruitful during 20 years. The jeweler, though a millionaire, was a modest man. He had purchased a substantial carriage, built in 1648, 10 years after the king's birth. This carriage, or rather house upon wheels, excited the admiration of the whole quarter in which he resided. It was covered with allegorical paintings, and clouds scattered over with stars. The marquise entered this somewhat extraordinary vehicle, sitting opposite the clerk, who endeavoured to put his knees out of the way, afraid of even touching the marquise's dress. It was the clerk, too, who told the coachman, who was very proud of having a marquise to drive, to take the road to Saint-Mande. Chapter 27